Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Tan Kok Wei from UC of Reading, Malaysia. So today I'll be sharing with you a little bit about my finding on how we can cope with life changes, especially the major one, and also specifically in this case, we are going to talk about how to cope with the new normal. So from the title itself, you probably know that I'm going to talk about the pandemic, but before we go into the content, I'm going to give you some idea, the structure of my presentation today. I'm going to start by providing some background about the things I'm going to discuss, which is on the COVID pandemic. And subsequently, the major part of my presentation will be sharing with you some of the evidence-based coping strategy, which I found from literature. It can be further divided into two different aspects. One would be the interpersonal level, and the other one would be on the intrapersonal level. What you can do by connecting with others and what you can do on your own in improving your well-being. And of course, I want to make it a little bit lighter. So the very later part, I'm going to share with you how I convert those very hardcore evidence-based approach into the real world application. Okay, so we're living in an era that I think that no human have experienced before. This is an unprecedented disaster in human history. So we don't really know how we are supposed to deal with it. There's a lot of new changes, and the first case of COVID was being detected, I think, end of last year, around December. And then subsequently in March this year, it has been declared by the WHO, the World Health Organization, as a pandemic. And as you can see, it's actually giving a lot of impact on our life, affecting millions, infecting millions, and killing tens of thousands of lives. So this is according to statistics provided by Johns Hopkins University in June 2020. Just before I started the presentation this morning, I went to the website and then I checked again the statistics. Up until this moment, up until 10th of October, it has been killing 1.6 million lives. So the number is keep on increasing. And there's a lot of researchers start conducting research to study the impact, the consequences of this pandemic. As you can see, I give you some example whereby when they actually look at people who's actually living in pandemic, they found that basically we are experiencing much higher level of anxiety, and also there's a higher amount of people who's living in depression as well. The reason is very obvious because this pandemic presents to us with a combination of stressors. So you probably look around, you can see that a lot of people is actually losing the job. You don't even have to actually go into literature, just look around, chat with your friends. Some of my friends is actually losing their job after pandemic, or I think when you look into JB, especially some of our friends is actually living in Singapore. So with the closing down of border, it creates a lot of problem, including it block our access to protective factor. In our life, one of the whenever we experience emotional disturbance, we can always actually share those things with our family member. But if you have any of the family members working in JB, working in Singapore, sorry, I assume that this would be a very obvious case for many of us who is living in JB. Some of our friends or maybe relatives are actually living in Singapore. With the border closing down due to this pandemic, we are actually being blocked to get access to all these protective factors. And also constantly we need to actually adopting a new way of living. So we can no longer salam with our friends in a very conventional way. We can no longer meeting people, having gathering, having tandoori like what we usually do back then before the pandemic. So for today's sharing session, I'm going to share with you some of the strategies that I found from literature, which can be useful for you to cope with these changes, and also for you to hopefully reduce the amount of distress that you are experiencing. Okay. I'm going to start by talking about the most obvious one, which it has been discussed in Dr. Maria Brenda presentation. One of the very good way to go is actually stay stay connected with your significant other, that would mean that you need to have some sort of a social support. It can be coming from a family member, it can be also coming from your friends. Of course, in the context of EduCity, I think that we are talking about the educator as well. We are talking about your classmate as well. So it has been constantly showing that this social network is very important to provide you with physical support. So if let's say you're facing financial constraints, so these people may be one of the early sources that you can actually get assistance. Apart from physical assistance, it can be useful for your emotional support as well, meaning that when you need a shoulder to cry on, then you know that where you're supposed to actually look for. Apart from physical and emotional support, of course, we have informational support as well, which you can see the importance of having accurate information when you're dealing with uncertainty, which I'm going to discuss in a slight more details in the next presentation. But overall, what I'm going to highlight here is the importance of staying connected with your significant other so that you still can have an intact sanity. Of course, on one hand, we want to be staying connected with people, but on the other hand, we have authority keep on reminding us to actually maintaining social distance. How do we have a good balance in these two different aspects of life? So on one hand, people asking you, hey, not to say so close to me, but on the other hand, from research evidence, we know the importance of staying connected with each other. Luckily, with the technology advancement, right, you can actually stay connected with people without having physical, have physical contact with them. So we have a lot of online communication platform. So for example, today I can share with you my idea without actually meeting you physically. We have this platform whereby I can just talk about what I've discovered from literature and to share with you my life. But the approach that I've been taken by using this webinar. So I think that you can do the same as well by using WhatsApp thing and so on and so forth. So this would be on interpersonal level. The next thing would be what you can do on your own without involving other parties. This is very much important as well, especially during the lockdown, especially for people living alone like me. So one of the very important things is to have a good sense of control of your life. You know that we are dealing with uncertainty. When you're feeling uncertain, you want to gain a sense of control of your life. So what I'm going to share with you is how do you gain back that sense of control? Because people out there is telling you a lot of things, what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do. Every day you see there's a lot of changes happen in our society. And then even for this webinar also, the format keep on changing, and then the way how we're supposed to actually deliver our lecture to students is changing, and students need to cope with all these changes as well. So you want to gain back a sense of control. And one of the very good way to do so is by having goal setting. So you need to have long-term goal setting and also proximal goal setting. So that would mean that you can start thinking what you want to achieve, for example, by the end of this year. And then having that big goal is actually not good enough. You need to be able to break down your long-term goal into a smaller proximal goal. I think one of the very good way to actually feel good about yourself is every day when you wake up early in the morning, you need to have some idea what you're going to do for the day. And this will actually give you a sense of control, a sense of security. And this is one of the first approach that I'm going to recommend to you. Second thing is, as I mentioned earlier, some of our relative or friends, they're actually losing job. So one of the biggest challenge is actually with financial constraint. So during this pandemic, I think that we need to highlight the importance of having a better financial management, meaning that you need to plan your budget and you need to avoid spending money on things which is not necessary. You need to think much more thoroughly when you're thinking about making a huge investment. So this again has been found in literature to be beneficial when you're dealing with crisis. I think previous presenter also highlighted the importance of knowledge as well. So when you're dealing with uncertainty, it's always good to actually have some sort of, you need to have a certain level of information. So as you can see, my third suggestion would be actually staying informed without overindulging on social media. So you need to know about the pandemic itself. You need to know about the status of the area that we are living in. And luckily enough that we have apps which allow us to do so. So you have My Sejahtera apps, which you can see whether you're living in green, green zone or red zone, and then you can even go to the one specific area where you can, which is with the label of hotspot, that will tell you that within 1 km of your living radius, whether there's cases of COVID. So you need to stay informed, and you need to remember not to overly indulge, which means that people will constantly sending you a lot of information. You need to check the credibility of all those information, and you cannot actually get panic for every single message that you receive. So this is equally important as well. The next thing I think that have been mentioned is in Dr. Brenda presentation as well, is to have an active lifestyle. This again has been shown in a lot of study. And in this example, I show you two of the literature which has been conducted specifically looking at people, how they deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. And they found that people who's actually having a good sense of well-being are the one which is staying active, meaning that you need to keep on continuing with your daily life, and you need to have exercise as well. Another very important factor is to have self-care as well. Make sure you get enough sleep. These are the things which is actually very basic, but not to be taken for granted. Okay, the next one of which I thought quite important is actually, in our culture, we have been constantly reminded the importance of studying, working. This is the message that our parents, our teacher keep on telling us that we need to work hard and so on and so forth. But today I'm going to tell you slightly different. Sometimes you need to stay away from those things as well. Get distracted, not to look at all those very disturbing news, not to actually just looking at your textbook. You need to get away. You need to find a way to actually have fun in your life, to have laughter. So if let's say you don't have hobby, start develop a new hobby now, okay? So this again is very important for you to maintain your sanity. In a lot of literature, when they're talking about how you can enhance your emotional regulation, usually they highlight the importance of reappraisal. So the third suggestion on this slide is actually on the importance of cognitive reappraisal, which is the ability to learn to see things from just more than just one perspective. I'm actually against the idea of just being positive. To me, you need to be able to see from different perspectives. You need to be able to see the potential obstacles so that you can prepare for that. At the same time, you cannot just focus on the negative aspect of life. I remember that during the pandemic, I was keeping in touch with my friend, and in one of the group chat, one of my friends saying that she's feeling very much depressed because there's so many bad things happening in life. And then she asked us to actually share with us 3 good things that happened in our life during the pandemic. So I create the collage to actually share with her what are the good things that happened in my life. So I'm going to actually share with you this example as well in brief. So she asked for 3 suggestions. Instead, I gave her 18 suggestions. So these are some of the good things that happened in my life. I got the time to do reading, and then I learned how to cook. And then because I need to work at home, I actually create my own study room, which is actually not exist before the pandemic. And then because I like drawing, I draw more than 100 doodles during the lockdown period. And I'm living alone, so a lot of my friends is actually, they are very much scared that I will die because of starving. So I have friends constantly sending me free foods. So these are some of the very good examples. Even though during pandemic, there's a lot of good things happen. The very important part is actually your ability to be able to see those very small things, which usually we take for granted, but it's actually a positive force of our life. For example, in this another slide, I think that one of the very grateful things is actually my parent is still staying safe after this pandemic, during this pandemic, hopefully after the pandemic as well. Okay, so 2 more suggestions to go before I end my presentation. Of course, there's way more. I'm just highlighting a few important ones. So we know that you need to have goal. We know that you need to be able to enjoy your life. So another suggestion is actually to keep a diary of your daily event as well, and what you have learned on daily basis. This has been shown, for example, in a study by Baker to be beneficial for enhancing our emotional well-being. And another very important aspect is actually, if let's say you still have work, find meaning and value in your work. That is actually going to apply for educator and also students. So student, your work will be your study. And if let's say you think that overall everything is so overwhelming, of course, I would suggest for you to look for experts. You know that we have a lot of experts in today's panels, so you can actually have a chat with us. With that, I think I'm going to end my presentation today. These are some of the literature that I refer to. So it's all evidence-based. I hope that you actually get one or two ideas which you think you can apply in your life. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tan, for very cheerful presentation, evidence-based, and very practical manner. So thank you so much, Dr. Tan.